I genuinely could not come up with a loss. It was like there was just static. And I'm like, guys, I'm going to be honest. I'm not trying to be like pie in the sky, fairy tale land, but I don't have any losses. I'm like, there aren't any losses. There are lessons, but there's no losses.
What if you could build a business in the modern world as big or as small as you want without having to compromise the things that were the most important to you in the very beginning? This is the Wealthy Consultant Talks podcast with Taylor Welch and Mike Walker, as they share with you today their learning lessons from stories in their experiences over the past 10 to 15 years and share with you right here, right now. Let's get into it.
All right. What is going on, my friends? Mike Walker here in another episode of TWC Talks, the Wealthy Consultant Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today because I have a special guest with me, a VIP member, if you will, inside of one of our highest tiers of consulting called the Chamber here at the Wealthy Consultant. Miss Jennifer Bleam, you have been a rock star student, a rock star community member, a rock star leader, and everything in between is in terms of what we do there. And I'm really excited to have you on. So thank you for joining us. Give us a quick bio. I'd love to. Yeah. I'm so excited. So let's give a quick little bio for you and get our guests up to speed on your background. And then I'm excited to jump into some of our topics today.
Yeah, for sure. So I love all things related to sales and marketing. I've been in the marketing world for several decades now, studied with Dan Kennedy and some of the greats from kind of a former time, and then started my own consulting company about 5 years ago. And like I said, love marketing, love sales. I studied under the Gap selling people. I'm Sandler trained. Probably you name a sales book, I've read it. Published my own sales book that hit the bestseller list on Audible and Amazon. So all things related to just the core fundamentals of growing a business.
Amazing. So it's almost like you know a thing or two, it seems. That's pretty awesome.
I do. I know a thing or two.
I've been around, whatever. Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's go there because knowledge, we've heard that phrase, right? Like, oh, knowledge is power. And I've always been an advocate. Well, not really. Knowledge isn't power. It's potential power.
Yes.
It's only when it's properly applied that it becomes powerful, right? So of all the training, of all the things that you've done, we'll stay tactical and strategic first. What do you feel was the biggest needle mover in your evolution as an entrepreneur? Like, where did things really start to click for you in your earlier journey?
Yeah, it's interesting. I always use the same phrase. Knowledge is it's kind of potential energy, not kinetic energy. So especially in this information age, information is everywhere. You can read books, you can listen to books, you can go to AI tools, get summaries of speeches and TED Talks and books and blogs and podcasts. And so the information is abundant. What is not so abundant is the application of that information. So that's really where I've been focusing for the last couple, maybe six to 9 months. I've always been a voracious reader. I've always studied some of the greats and some of the new books. I've always read a lot, and I would apply them, but I would apply them a little bit in the surface area. I would do the things, I would come up with my task list. I'm very task oriented, create the list, check them off. I'm good at prioritizing. I'm good at project managing. But what I wasn't doing quite at the depth I needed to was really internalizing kind of the lesson within the lesson. If we kind of go to like Inception and the dream within the dream, there's fundamentals. But then there's that level that's deeper, like why do the fundamentals work? Why if you're missing some of the fundamentals, are things just not clicking? And that's really what I've been focused on for the last 6 to 9 months is doing the inner work, not just the tasks. Like the tasks are comfortable, and even if they stretch you outside of your comfort zone, it is a comfortable thing to check off a task. Like we all, most of us do that. Some people don't, but we mentally have that list of things to do. That's easy. The harder work is the internal work and the changes with how you think, how you look at the world, how you look at yourself. That's really where I've been looking for the last number of months.
Yeah, I love that. And I've been guilty of that too. It gets so like you said, task oriented. I love checking those, get that dopamine hit of checking those things off the box, feeling productive. And even if you are being productive, it's easy to get so busy that we forget the fact that ultimately, taxes change, markets change, everything's in a state of flux, but we'll never outperform our mindset. And I feel like that's where inside the Wealthy Consultant, especially, Taylor and all his teaching on, belief architecture and all the things that we talk about in there, I would say that that's really where all of a sudden that magic connection between the tactical and strategic blends with the ability to see it and take it further than just for that surface level, like you were talking about. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, one of the things that I've added to my morning formula that I look at every day is that my job is not to be busy. My job is to be me and to be the best version of me that I possibly can be. And that's been a shift because busy feels like productive, and it can be that's what's like, there's nuance here, right? Like, it's not black and white. Sometimes you do need to have a busy season, what Taylor calls a push season, but the goal isn't busy, and busy should not equate to how you see yourself and how your self-confidence shouldn't come from, I got to the end of my to-do list and checked everything off. Self-confidence should be internal from who I am, not from what I do. So it's a very different shift. Yeah.
It's interesting when you say that too. It reminds me of how I become acutely aware of how I perceived being busy, quote unquote busy, and like you said, doing a lot and productive. Not just busy, but actually being productive, but doing a lot, high volume, high quality, all the things. And people say, "Hey, how was your week?" Or "How are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh man, I'm busy," And it's really interesting. I started checking myself and well, hang on. Why is that a good thing? Why am I associating that as like being proud that I'm busy?
Yes.
And so I've really had to like monitor the words I use to describe my feeling of how I'm doing, and not associating that word busy as maybe a positive. And almost lately I've been like, if I'm saying that, then something's off, like I don't want to be busy. I'll work hard, but I also need to be balanced and thinking marathon, not sprint, all the things. It's not easy, right? Because our Western culture certainly doesn't necessarily advocate for that. I subscribed, luckily I unsubscribed, but for a long time, early in my earlier entrepreneurial days, I subscribed to that whole, you'll sleep when you're dead, grind, 24/7 club, all the little things that hustle culture produced. And those were deeply embedded. I didn't realize how deeply embedded those were for quite a while. I'll be honest. It was harder to shake than I realized.
Yeah. When I'm going through my planning for the week, I've got a new thing that I've just implemented in the last few months. And we all know, I think probably we all know, like the do, delegate, defer, delete, which I'm not good at the delete part, but I've added another category, which is deep work. And so every week I select, my goal is 3, it's usually 5 things that are going to move the needle. They aren't typically tasks. I don't want to quite go to the point where I want to say the tasks never move the needle. The tasks are important, but the deep work can really get the short end of the stick if you're not careful. You can get really caught up in just chunking through a bunch of tasks, getting that dopamine hit, getting to the end of the week, feeling good about yourself because you got a lot of stuff done, but it wasn't necessarily the right thing. And so like this week, I selected 5 deep work tasks, and I believe I'm going to get all 5 of them done, which is fantastic because when I'm doing my planning on Sunday, I'm not quite in the thick of it. And so I'm thinking a little more clearly. I can say, okay, that you're right. That's deep work, but that can wait till next week. That can wait till next quarter. And so that planning is important, but then having the discipline to say, okay, some of my tasks may not get done this week, but I'm going to try to get at least 3 or 4, maybe all 5 of my deep work tasks done. And that's what moves the needle. So it's a different way to look. It's I guess, kind of gaming the system because I'm still making a task list. I'm still getting that dopamine hit, but I'm using my intellect to identify what's going to be a needle mover and not allowing myself to get distracted by the fires that come up during the week. We're never going to run out of tasks, but we can run out of time. So got to get those deep work things done.
I love that. And I've I'll say, in the time that we worked together, with you being in chamber and whatnot, I've definitely seen that evolution and the level of clarity and sophistication you brought to the table with your business and all the things we worked on. It's been really awesome to be a part of. Um, but you shared with me a little story. I don't know. I think it was last week about like something that it was pretty significant. Actually, I took a screenshot of it and I sent it over to Taylor. I was like, "Oh, look at this!" It was such a cool win. Could you tell that story? Because I think it's really profound, and maybe we'll highlight for others here, kind of really cement the concept of what we're talking about today.
Yeah, for sure. So I was invited to do a guest webinar for some of my ideal clients. So my ICP1s, ICP2s. And I love doing that. I love adding value wherever I can. And because I was the guest, they put me on the spot a little bit and said, all right, the way we always start these calls is we want you to share a win. We want you to share a stuck. And we want you to share a loss. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's jump into it. I love sharing wins. It raises the energy. It's fantastic. And so I pulled a couple of wins out. It was genuinely hard to find the wins. It's hard to narrow down the wins. So I was supposed to share one. I think I shared two. That in and of itself is a win because just a few months ago, I was really struggling with not feeling grateful, not recognizing the wins that were there. I just, reticular activating system it works. It does what it's supposed to do. So that just the fact that I was able to just roll, I'm like, man, how am I going to only list one? Like there's so many. So I found a win that was easy. A stuck, like I'm having some team member challenges and we think we've solved it, but we're not sure, like the normal part of business. And then I'm like losses and I'm like, I genuinely could not come up with a loss. It was like there was just static. Like I couldn't, the words didn't compute. And I'm like, guys, I'm going to be honest. I'm not trying to be like pie in the sky, fairy tale land, but I don't have any losses. I'm like, there aren't any losses. There are lessons, but there's no losses. And I just explained that losses, or marketing campaigns that fail or closed sales calls that didn't, you can't mark them as closed won. You have to mark them as closed lost or a ghosted opportunity. Or, I bid on an 18K consulting deal and didn't get it. Like all of those things they're data points. And I said, if you're going on a trip and your GPS says, take a left and you take a left and there's a guardrail there, you don't get mad at the guardrail. You probably don't even get mad at the GPS. You just put your car in reverse or you do a 3-point turn and you're like, well, I'm going to have to find another way there. And then I in my mind, I'm hearing the GPS saying rerouting. It's not, we don't want to move that guardrail. It's there for a reason. And so that's the way, like there's not losses there's lessons. And I remember years ago, like my first mindset coach was like, I don't, what did she say? I don't lose. I either win or I learn. And I'm like, whatever. Like it sounds so, when you're not in that moment, you're like, that's really cute. But she was right. I should probably text her and tell her because she would love to hear from me that particular win. And I think that's just so important. Like data is just data. Don't attach emotion to it. Learn from it. Don't fight with it. Like if, as long as it's valid data, learn from it and move on. So they aren't losses. And that's a huge shift because even just 3-4 months ago, I was internalizing every loss. And just to kind of go full circle, if we're looking at our to-do list and that's where we're getting our self-confidence from, then the inverse of that is we look at the losses and we lose our self-confidence. So they're kind of two sides of the same coin. And so being able to have self-confidence because I know who I am, I know my skills, regardless of the closed sales or the new consulting gigs or whatever, that doesn't change who I am at my core. And so that it's my job to show up as me every day, regardless of the losses or the lessons.
Amazing, man. That's a highlighter right there. I love that. And, you mentioned, when we first came on, you've been doing this a while. It's not like this is all just brand new stuff to you. So what do you think it was that unlocked that ability to absorb those lessons better and to use them more efficiently than maybe you would have before. It's kind of that, hindsight is 2020. If only I knew then what I know now type stuff, right? I get that all the time. So what is it, do you think that's caused that shift internally for you?
So I know that I thrive in solid environments where there are entrepreneurial people who are driving themselves forward, who are driven. The chamber environment is fantastic. I know that may not be the answer you were looking for, but it's been a game changer for me. Like you mentioned, belief architecture. That product is truly a game changer. I don't use that lightly. I literally can look back on just 2 or 3 pivotal moments in my life. And that's one of them, is going through that belief architecture live. And then through the recordings, I've actually written some AI prompts around it just to help me think through some of the harder concepts. And environment is so important. I don't know that I'm quite at the point where I'm like, hey, I kind of wish I would have known this 5 years ago or 10 years ago. There's the phrase, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So, this was the perfect timing for me. Like, I feel like I'm poised to just get to new levels of success and new levels. There is, again, not to make this full circle, but there is so much potential energy. Like I feel like I'm at the starting line, just ready to launch. And then a lot of things are gelling and falling into place. And it's just, it's a good place to be. So environment is, you can't overstate how important environment is, at least for me. I think for most people though.
For sure. And even the people that maybe don't realize it or internalize it as being so imperative, it's, man, who you hang around with, right? It's the books you read, the people you hang out with, the music you listen to, all those things. It's all those inputs and influences, I think, are pretty profound.
When you think about it, like the entrepreneurial journey is very lonely. We're all probably surrounded by family and friends who are well-meaning, but they will say, you work too hard, or are you making any money? Like, you look skinny. I'm worried you're not eating. Like all the things, right? Like we probably all have those people in our lives, and they do mean well. It's coming from probably mostly a heart of gold. But there is something special about getting in a room with the people that either they're struggling with things that you wrestled with a year ago, or people that are, a month or 6 months or 10 years ahead of you. And then that rising tide lifts everyone.
I love that. I'm writing that down. Yeah. Where you are now, if you could go back and tell yourself, the very earliest stages of your entrepreneurial journey, what one thing would you really want to share with your past self now that you are where you are?
Wow, there's a lot there, because I've been journaling on that the last couple of months. It's going to be difficult, but you're more resilient than you possibly realize.
Good one. I love that. Nice. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for jumping on with me and sharing your story and some of the insights. These are great. I've got some great notes here I'll definitely be adding. And for everybody listening, if you haven't gotten into the room with us, you need to get in the room. Regardless of whether you're inside chamber or not, we do make some tickets available to people outside, so they can see what it's like to get into a room. And what I say, the power of proximity and rubbing elbows, shaking hands with people that are like you, that are maybe a little bit farther along than you. Some are earlier stages than you. It's just a really powerful synergistic environment to be in. So I'll provide a link around this video that you can check us out. You can learn more about that. But Jennifer, any closing statements that you'd like to add for somebody that's maybe looking at, the wealth consultant chamber, all those things, like, they're just seeing it from the outside. So if there's any, last closing statements that you could think of that might help that person guide them towards the right tools, whether it be us or otherwise, what comes to mind for you on that?
The biggest thing I would say is if you're on the outside and you've been kind of dipping your toe in the water and you're liking what you're hearing on the fringe, like, there's a ton of great content out there that's for free, but it's the same, but even better inside of the ecosystem. So I kind of am picturing a swimming pool, like, okay, the water is the water. Like, it doesn't, the fundamentals don't change. The temperature doesn't change, but it's so much deeper. And dare I say, more fun when you actually get into the swimming pool. So take the leap. It is worth it. And it's you're not seeing a facade. I think that's what some people are afraid of is we're all a little skeptical, and most of us have been burned. Like the commonalities are there, but yeah, jump in. The water's amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I love swimming, especially with a cool crew like you guys. So that's a good analogy. I'll take that one for sure. Awesome. Well, hey guys, thanks so much for joining us. As always, we'll have another episode coming out soon. Jennifer, again, thank you so much for hopping up in the earlier morning here with us and getting another episode in. So appreciate you, excited for you, and I'm just grateful and honestly humbled to be play a small part in your journey. So look forward to continuing working together for sure.
Awesome. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Awesome. All right, guys, we'll see you on another episode of the Wealthy Consultant Podcast.